Let's get to Mike Howell. Mike, thanks for joining us today. Sorry for having to sit through my rant, Mike.
Well, I agree with you completely. Do college basketball next.
Mike, do we still have college basketball? Mike, okay, Mike, now that you brought it up, dude, sorry, your fault, not mine. Mike Howell is the president of the Oversight Project. What about a little oversight in the gambling scandal going on in NCAA basketball? What is that? Comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the entirely inevitable consequence of making, college sports into pro sports and attaching gambling markets to it. When you get rid of amateurism and the honor of it all, of course, this stuff seeps in. Everybody's now individually motivated to, make a profit in those years. What used to be a great American institution is now another corporate, semi-professional, if not totally professional industry. Who is surprised whatsoever that, the guys who don't get the NIL deals at whatever school are shaving some points to get what's theirs.
See, Mike, you nailed it. I mean, that's really, this is driven by the NIL. And we thought, oh, they're getting all this money. But what happens is if they feel slighted, they're like, well, I'll just make it in the gambling market. Now we got the scandal coming out where the CCP is involved in this.
What are they involved in?
What?
What aren't they involved in? They're just eating our lunch every which way.
It's unbelievable, Mike. Well, we need you on the Gambling Oversight Committee. Before we get to Minnesota, what about this, what's poly market thing where this guy or gal, anonymous, bets $35,000 in this predictive market that Maduro would get captured by January 15th, gets, I think, 12 to 1 odds, makes $400,000. You're going to tell me that's not insider stuff?
No, it absolutely is. I think people would be shocked at the amount of legalized corruption and insider trading in Washington, D.C. and the people around it. It's not just like the stocks, which are just obscene. And this bill that's going through won't do much to end it, although a lot of congressmen will say it does. And the poly market stuff is just another way for them to make money. I mean, I hear poly market odds all the time being thrown out in D.C. I go to them to get a sense of what people think. I don't bet on them. But for instance, when we dropped a huge investigative finding related to Mayorkas, and this 4 years ago, and he skyrocketed to the most likely to be impeached at that time. So he was third place in the early Biden administration. We nuked him on the border whipping hoax, which we caught him lying about. And then he skyrocketed to number one and stayed there and then was the first impeached. Now, what's that tell you? It tells you I'm a sucker. I should have placed all my money right before we released our investigative findings. I wouldn't need to work right now, but I'm glad I didn't because I love what I do because there's a lot of fraud that needs to be solved. You're the Godzilla of truth. I'll be the King Kong of accountability.
Well, Mike, I like that King Kong of accountability. I mean, they got to find out who placed this bet. I know it was an anonymous. They got to find who placed it, and somebody should be knocking on his door. Because the bigger concern that I had, not that, look, obviously it had to be somebody inside that operation that told someone that collaborated. It had to be. Nobody is going to bet $30,000 based on their instinct that Maduro would get captured on a certain day, right? At 15 to 1 odds or whatever it was. The guy made or gal made $400,000. So somebody was inside. But if this happens again and you're the Venezuelan security, you're going to look at this thing and the date and you're going to say, well, this has got to be somebody inside that has knowledge of when this is coming, right?
Yeah, 100%. Or if you're the next Maduro, you just watch Polymarket to see when you're going to be captured. Then you hide in the basement. It's perplexingly dumb. It's a serious country would not allow for this.
No, this thing should get banned. I've never participated in them, and I'm pro gambling. Everybody knows that. I'm pro casino, legalized gambling, but I always believe that the predictive markets, even though that there was a challenge to them and on political betting, and some lower court, stated, I think they need to get banned. Mike, the real reason you're on today is how did Minnesota's transparency failures allow the Somalia-linked fraud networks to flourish, and what is the level here of accountability? What has gone on here?
Yeah, so it's best to understand this holistically. I know everyone's pointing at Minneapolis right now, as they should. But this is a watershed moment because I think people are seeing the full picture and, the mosaic, the forest for the trees, however you want to put it. This goes back decades. This is the left's governing strategy. And it started really in the late 90s, in the Clinton era. It is coupling mass migration with welfare. That's the Democrats' game plan. You import new constituencies because you lose American constituencies, and then you make them the party of the Democrats by feeding them money either legally or illegally. And Republicans have sat there and watched it happen and done nothing. In fact, many have hurt the cause because they've kind of moralized the issue of immigration, and they always, redraw the lines in the left favor. Like right now, they're saying only criminals should be deported. It's like, no, everyone who's here illegally should be deported. You have like the Mike Pences of the world perpetually floating with amnesty and refugee stuff. And so it's given Democrats decades of time and space to operate. And, they've racialized the issue. If you even look at it, you're called a racist. And so it's scared a lot of weaklings off. But basically what happens is this is their governing strategy. It's their political strategy. These huge bloated bills, they go out without any ability to conduct oversight. The funds are managed by the states, and the states are, blue ones are explicitly for this kind of stuff. I mean, these are the people who want reparations, right? And like when you believe in that type of thing, why do you care if the reparations are a form of, a legitimate check or if they're in the form of a fake daycare center? There's no shame in it. Like we are shocked because we're American, we have American values. But the people of Somalia, this is how they think government should work. You're allowed to rip it off, and your tribe and your clan are allowed to, and it's good if they do, and it's good if the leaders you put in there help you do it. And so, like, we've got to see this as what they want. This is how countries crumble. This is third world stuff. It's the end state that they're looking for.
Mike Howell with us. Mike is the president of the Oversight Project, the King County of Accountability. I like that, Mike. Tell me about the level of this fraud nationally. Rand Paul went on Joe Rogan the other day and inferred that he believed that it would reach nationally $500 billion.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. It's going to be impossible to pinpoint an exact number because we're going to come to learn a lot of this is legal fraud. It's been built into the system, and proving white collar crime in every instance is a painstaking task. And with this sheer amount of money, that makes sense. I mean, if you look at the COVID loan program, the fraud rates there were through the roof. And that's just a good kind of proxy for how when you put that much money out without safeguards and you make it racist to have a safeguard, the inevitable will obviously happen. And so it's not just Minneapolis or Minnesota. It's going to be most profound in blue states. It's going to be most profound in areas with high immigrant communities, legal and illegal. And I think, if Republicans are up for it, they could become the party of fighting fraud, waste, and abuse and accountability. That's what we're pushing for at the Oversight Project. The issue is there's some fraud, waste, and abuse on the right, too. And a lot of it's in, their favored interests, whether it's, the defense industrial base or foreign interventionism or, Republicans funding the National Endowment for Democracy last week. That's kind of the deal in Washington. The left gets to rip people off by driving welfare money to their favorite constituents, and the right gets to rip people off by firing or putting money towards their favorite constituents. Guess who loses? You do, the middle class. It's a wealth transfer.
How do you stop this? I mean, how do you get to the bottom of this, Mike?
Yeah, you're going to need generational change of politicians in D.C. If you look at it, like right after everyone was talking about Minneapolis fraud over Christmas through the New Year, Congress gets back, and the first thing they do, a Republican bill, has $1 million earmark going to a Somali-led ISIS-connected fraud center in Minneapolis. We at the Oversight Project caught it because, they try to rush these bills through. It came out on Sunday night. We poured through it, located on this just as one. There's millions and millions more in waste, but this one was egregious. And Republicans ended up stripping it out. They weren't happy they had to because it complicated their quick path to getting a bill through. But like these are the trade-offs they're willing to make. They aren't serious about it. And it's for a lot of reasons, but ultimately you're going to need a political culture change. And Democrats aren't going to do it. And you need Republicans actually willing to fight through to do it. Congress needs to step up. If they can't conduct oversight of the program or be confident the money won't be wasted, they shouldn't fund it. And that's a reasonable common sense standard that I would like to see in place.
Mike, you and I agree on another thing. I think the bill going through to limit, curtail, or discourage insider stock trading in Congress, I think is a joke. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong. You could drive a Mack truck through some of the loopholes they wrote. I mean, they're in a pickle, right? They got some rich members who want to keep trading stocks. They have a voting base and some very aggressive members who realize how insane that looks to the everyday American struggling to get through. And so they need to do something that, appears to be solving the problem, but doesn't actually solve the problem. And it's frustrating to see even like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez calling it out and be like, yeah, she's not wrong. Because it's just like, you got to have the courage of your convictions and actually do this stuff. And I'm sick of seeing people using politics in Congress or the executive branch as a way to get rich. I think Americans are sick of it. I think this is all flows from accountability, which, people like talking about like disparate issues and stuff. And we policy nerds can do that all day. But your average common sense American just feels that they're getting the hard shake and the screws turned on them and it's harder to get ahead. And they see people getting away with just, crazy stuff left and right. I think that's what upsets people about the Epstein files. That's what upsets them about congressmen getting rich from insider trading. And it just virtually all politics. And if we look at the future of, the MAGA coalition moving forward, like we got to solve for that problem and be really serious about it and not do like half measures.
Mike, let me ask you this. Midterms, polls coming out, all bad news, one after the other. Trump's going to lose. Republicans are going to get wiped out. I don't necessarily share that view. What about you?
Yeah, it's. I don't share the view of the polls that are coming out now. We all know that industry is a joke. I think there's a very easy path to retain control, but it's going to be hard politically for them to be willing to do it. And it just is very simple, rather. Dance with the girl you brought to prom. Trump came down the golden escalator, rejecting the system of the status quo, trying to make everyday Americans, happy with their government, a government that actually serves them by closing the border, deporting illegals, making sure that people aren't, ripping, each other off. And the middle class is the foundation of that. And so I think shortly, like Trump's got to hold some people accountable. He's got to show that the elites will be held to account, and it's not just everyday Americans who are. He's got to deport illegal aliens who came in at scale. We're not deporting enough right now. And the left's having a heyday rioting over just like nominally normal deportations. And so people have to be, the voting base has to be activated once again to show when they pull the lever for this like regime change, which Trump is a rejection of the governing regime, that it actually manifests in the core issues that they pulled the lever for. And I think that's accountability.
Listen, I think you're right. I think we have to double down. I don't think Trump can back away. And, for the typical rhinos to be wringing their hands now about, the optics of Minnesota and, this and that, all fear. There's a contingent of us that believe that a lot of Republicans are more comfortable when they're in the minority. And I think that's why they won't break the filibuster. They want to hope they get back in the minority, and then they're, the Democrats need 60 votes, and they're not accountable for anything. They can continue to trade their stocks and do nothing, basically, and just have their windowed office, Mike.
Yeah, that's right. It's easier to make promises and get donations off those promises than it is to actually go and keep your promises when you're enabled to do that in the majority. And yeah, I think a lot of Republicans just weren't down with the Trump agenda, and they've learned to kind of like speak through it. I say they speak in an accent as like America first, but they don't govern with like a new course of political action. And I think people are seeing through that. And that's why some of the base is just like, all right, we've been through this now for a decade. Like we should have learned our lesson from 2020 and BLM. Why are we even talking about the Insurrection Act? It should be happening. Like the optics of this, what are you talking about? They're terrific, I guess, because there are people in masks defending illegal aliens in the United States and rioting over it. This is exactly why we put President Trump in to restore law and order. And so the optics of restoring law and order would be absolutely terrific. And so everyone's trying to scare the president off this, probably because they don't want corporate America's cheap labor to be deported. But it's time to go. Like we already decided this when we voted for Trump in 2024. We voted for mass deportations, law and order, and accountability. So dance with the girl you brought to prom.
Well, you got it. Mike, Howell, I want to thank you for being with us, and thank you for all you do. The King Kong of oversight and accountability. Mike, how do people follow you?
Yes, we're at It's Your Gov on X, and I'm at mhowelltweets.
All right. Mike, thanks for being with us. As always, let's keep the accountability up. Mike Howell, the new King Kong of accountability.